Hi, welcome to our first episode of Mystery Girl Podcast. We have a big treat for you guys. As the first episode, we prepared some nice giveaway with a Coldfall hero for you. So stay tuned. Don't quit the video, because somewhere there in the middle or in the end, I don't want to say that this is middle or end. I don't want to say any timestamp. Somewhere there in the video, there is a moment that we will gonna explain the rules for the giveaway. It's very simple and the prize is amazing. I wish I could participate in this giveaway, but I can't. And besides that, we're gonna talk mainly about the Pro Tour, because both Lemur and Tinyguy just came back from New Jersey and they have a lot of experience to share with us. And also we had Polish finalist and Polish top 8 in both of the tournaments. So there's a lot of topics to cover. And without further ado, let's jump to our Pro Tour segment. Guys, you're gonna tell me what were the top 3 things that you remember from the Pro Tour.
Tomek, you want to start?
Gotcha.
All right, so 3 main things I remember. First of all, meeting James White in an elevator in our hotel. I think the banquet before the Pro Tour on Thursday evening. It was really special event with all the people from around the world gathering, expecting the Pro Tour, but didn't know what we can expect from LSS, from the Q&A that happened after that, and it was in general like the first moment when we had like 300 players on the hall maybe. And the whole Pro Tour, I think, like the whole event, it was, I think, the hardest tournament I've ever played. The biggest one, maybe, I'm not sure, but definitely the hardest, with biggest names, hardest opponents. 10 games, 14 games in 2 days. It's really hard. So the whole experience was really nice, really something big. It was all I could expect from that, and it was a great event.
Top 3, right? That's kind of hard to put it down to 3. But I'll expand the Pro Tour to the whole trip, because we were there for a week. So the whole sightseeing stuff, hanging around with the boys, as they say. Testing throughout the nights in the hotel rooms or in the hotel lobbies. That was an experience in itself. For sure, the tournament itself, just sitting down, being able to participate in the first Pro Tour, meeting all of the people from all around the world, some of which we played online, for example, on some previous tournaments, some that we knew about but first saw them first on the Pro Tour and stuff like that. And being able to meet James White, right, the creator of the game. As Lemur mentioned, he held the elevator for us, was so kind enough to do it. So that was a fun experience as well. But the whole experience, so the whole trip, the whole tournament, even the Battle Hardened on Sunday, everything was great.
Are you happy with the results?
I'm not that happy. I mean, yeah, I'll go first. So I went 4-3 in the first day, so I made day 2. And then I made 4-3 in the second day. I'm kind of disappointed, but not really, because I know that the losses were either a high roll or I didn't make that many mistakes. I for sure made some that I can't recall right now. But we're currently in a meta that is really swingy. It can get really high rolly. So the first Starvo match I even played on stream. So I just had nothing to say. Basically, my opponent fused every round. When I had 2 auras, he had a blink ready for that. So it was like 30-1 in life points. So I just basically had nothing to say. I won some later on, and then I, of course, had to meet the only brute on the whole Pro Tour. So as a prison player, I was excited to play that match, to say the least. And then to top it off, the last round was again Zach from Team Covenant on Briar. So also really happy to be playing against Briar when I'm on Prism. So that was day one for me. And then day two, I finally got to play some more chains. So I played 5 chains, I think, overall. I lost 2 of the matches and won 3 of them. And both of the matches that I lost were to a double Art of War into my boots, continue with a turn for 30 plus damage. So it was a high roll as well. So I'm not particularly angry about those games. Sure, I could have played better in some of those instances, but overall, I think I'm slightly disappointed. I kind of wanted to at least go X5, not X6, to be slightly above the curve. But being in the top 100 in the Pro Tour, finishing like 84th or something like that, that's also kind of okay for me. For sure, that's a reality check that even if you prepare, there's just some things that you cannot influence, and it happens what it happens. So yeah, that was my experience.
How about you, Lemur? You both went Prism, am I right?
Yes,
True,
we
true,
both
true, true.
played Prism, the same list. I
had to do the sideboard for him.
Yeah, that's
Just
true.
saying.
I was editing the vlog back there.
Sure.
Yeah, I finished 9-5, so I was 41st, I think. I would love to win one more game to get the PTI. That was my main goal. But this is an extremely hard tournament. The field is really hard to play. I started the tournament playing Eugene Fua, like rank 1 in Singapore, I think. I've managed to win that game, and I then played Michael Karancha, who is like rank 2 in Canada, I believe. So that was actually the reality check for me when the 2 first round I've played with people I knew. I've played them before online. But this is the moment when you realize that this is not a local armory, not a calling even. It's the best of the best, and having a positive result, more wins than losses, means something there. I cannot wait until they calculate the elo. I would like to see how it went at the end. So I've played mostly Starvos. I think I've played 10 Starvos, 3 mirror matches against Prism, and 1 Chane. So I've managed to win most of the games against Starvos. I think I was 7-3. So it was a pretty good result. If someone would ask me if I will take blindly the 7-3 result against Starvo, I would say yes, that's for sure. I didn't have any matches that were particularly swingy. That was a good experience for me. All of the games were pretty tense and played to the last round. So that's something I was really afraid of. In the field of Starvos, we had like 140 of them, I think. So as we know, Starvo can get pretty crazy at times. So overall, I was excited with my result. I would love to win one more game, but that's really fine with me.
Did any of you faced Kano? Because Kano was such a surprise for the Pro Tour.
I did.
No, I don't think
one.
so.
I killed one.
Yeah.
I think.
I would like to play against Kano actually.
Yeah, but I high rolled him the other way around because I just played Erudition into Celestial, so nothing to say there.
Do you think Tinyguy that Kano was a good call for this meta game? I know that you in the past played some Kano, and have you ever considered taking it to the Pro Tour?
It was definitely a brave choice. I mean, Kano shines mostly when there's no arcane barrier, as most of people know. And the Starvo lists were mainly tailored to counter either the mirror matchup, the Prism, or Chane. So those 3 were the main sideboard cards for Starvos. So there was no real place for Arcane Barrier because it was so tight between those slots. So the Kano was a good call in my opinion, but a brave one because you're Kano, you have 30 HP. So in the face of having the high roll meta, as I mentioned, so you can either get double erudition as I did to another Kano. You can get Starvo 3 turns in a row and just die because you don't hit anything off the top from your Kano, or you can get laked. Or one of your opponents can run a Heart of Ice, for example, for some reason, because they found the spot. So there's also guessing before every match if the opponent brought Nurun. So you basically have to guess if they have 3, if they had 2, if they have 1. The main difference is if they have 3, because that's the breakpoint for most of the spells. So if they have 3, you kind of need to go tall. I'm not sure how the 2 Kanos that went to top 8 played, how they sideboarded. I saw the lists were pretty standard from what I saw. But if one of them releases a deck tech or just explains their experiences with Kano, that would be also nice to see from their standpoint why they chose that and why did it worked.
I think Arsenal Pass should post the deck tech this week or next week. I know that they mentioned it. So maybe soon we'll figure out the sideboard, the idea behind the sideboard. But I guess you both tested mostly versus Starvo, as this is currently the deck to beat. But were there any other heroes that were on your target while playtesting?
I think we've played mostly against Starvo and Chane. We were actually testing Chane against each other. I was playing Chane, Tomek was playing Prism, and we wanted to see how that match goes. But we've also tested some unusual heroes, I would say. Because at the ProTour, I think the meta actually showed that there's always 1 or 2 players that love their hero. They are the most experienced with that. They will take the deck, beat everyone and everything they can, and do well actually, as we saw with Reiner in day 2, with Lexi, with Kanos of course. So we were testing Starvo against Dory as well, some Viserai just to see if he's still viable without Skeleda. Briar, of course, a lot of matches against Briar. We knew that this is really hard matchup for Prism, but we wanted to see how hard actually, if there is some edge we can take. And I think all of that showed that whatever you want to say about Fab, the meta is never solved. This ProTour proved that you can basically either take the best deck in the meta and do well, but you can also play your best hero and still outplay your opponents. You can try to figure out the format at the last minute, like guys did with Kano, and it really worked. No one expected that. I don't think, if you'd ask someone before the ProTour, will we see Kano and will we see Kano in the top 8? I don't think someone will actually answer that we will see 1 or 2 Kanos in the top 8. Besides, of course, the guys that were playing it at the tournament. So I think that in preparation for such a tournament, it is wise to at least play 1 or 2 games against most standard heroes. Try to feel the matchup, to at least know what to do. Because we've had some situations where I've actually beat Mathisen with Dory 2 times before he figured out how to sideboard, and then I never won any more games in that matchup. But we needed to test that. It was nice to see, nice to have that knowledge. So
yeah. Also, we could put slightly less games in because we had the opportunity to start playing much earlier, me and Lemur. So we're kind of familiar with most of the obscure cards that can exist in Fab, right?
But I know that Lemur, in a previous meta you were playing a lot of Chane. Have you considered Chane to take to the Pro Tour? Because from my understanding, the Chane will be like a new pretender for deck to beat after Starvo will go to Living Legend.
I'm not really sure. Actually, I know that Chane won the Pro Tour, and no one will agree with me. But I don't think this is the deck to beat. Chane is a really hard deck to pilot. It's a really hard deck to be consistent with. And it can be pretty swingy. Like this deck can make an amazing amount of damage. If you drew your Art of Wars, banished your red cards and drew your blue ones to pay for them. But it can also go the other way around, and you can banish all the blue ones, don't have enough money to pay with reds, banish 3 Art of Wars in a row, and the game basically collapses. So it can be the deck with the most damage and the fastest damage in the format right now. But I still think Starvo was the best choice for the Pro Tour if you wanted to do good on the whole field. And after it hits Living Legends, first of all, Chane still can be a Living Legend after the ProQuest season as well. I think we need 41 ProQuests won by Chane in the next 3 weeks. It's not impossible. We've seen Viserai win way above 40 events in the last season, and I think most Rune Blades will switch to Chane. So I'm pretty sure he can be Living Legend as well. So that will close the discussion. But if not, we will have Uprising in like 4 weeks, 3 weeks maybe. We will have at least one new aggro hero. We still don't know what the illusionist will do. We will also have a pretty heavy control with ice. So maybe in that window of like 2 weeks after the ProQuest and before the Uprising premiere, maybe Chane will be the deck to beat, but I don't think it will in the RTN season.
You mentioned the aggro, and I'm thinking about Channel Lake Frigid as some kind of the thing that will stop aggros in the meta in overall gameplay. Do you both think that Channel Lake Frigid is a problem currently because there will be more heroes that will play it? I'm talking here about Islander. I'm talking about maybe it will be Lexi more popular because of her presence on the Pro Tour. Do you think this will they will slow down the meta for the upcoming Uprising?
I don't think it will slow it down per se. If I had to say, there are only 3 legs in a deck. You need to draw them, and you need to have ice cards to keep it up, right? So mostly we'll have 2 legs for about 3 turns on the board. Probably per match, depending if the match is fast or not. And it also depends on the matchup against who you're playing the legs, right? So a Chane can still execute his whole turn because he has access to his banish. So if he has 4 blues in hand, he can still make his whole turn, basically ignoring the lake. Also, he's ignoring it with Soul Reaping and stuff like that, being able to draw from Art of War to replenish those resources. So there's a lot of quote-unquote cheating on mana there in Chane. For example, if you're playing Lake into a control dash, that is abysmal for dash, right? Because every activation costs 2, and just to load the pistol and shoot it, it's 1 blue, right? So it's terrible. Mm-hmm. And you're basically committing to blocking with your whole hand because you don't have to do anything because you don't have enough mana to do that. Same was with ninjas or with Lexi if they hit with a lake. So it really depends on which heroes will stay in the meta. Because if they can go around lake, like block with 2 cards, pitch a blue, do a big attack, then it's not a big problem. But if there are a lot of small attacks, cheap ones with low blue counts in deck, then it might become a slight problem. I'm mostly concerned about Alt him, more in Blades than in Constructed, but in Constructed as well, because if Starvo goes away and the meta will shift into a more aggressive one, because Starvo being a aggro deck, kind of in itself, still kept the other aggro decks in check because of the extremely potent on hits, right? So Crippling Crush and Oakenhold. So with those gone, Briar and Chane probably will come out again in more force than before, and then Lake against those might be good, especially against Briar, when they have a Channel Mount Heroic in board. It's extremely good. So we'll see what the meta brings about, right? As you mentioned, Icelander, I don't know how to pronounce her, the white mage. We'll see what she brings to the table. Instant speed legs are awesome. I've played her in Blitz, so I know the power of those. Being 2 tags, even one more, and then just pitch a blue ice card on your turn, because you don't have to pitch a ice card to play it on your opponent's turn, because channels are at the end of your turn. It's really powerful. We'll see how it turns out. I'm hoping Islander becomes a good control hero, because I love playing control, and if she's there, and she's a wizard. If she's there, if she's a wizard, if she can control and deal arcane damage, like, what more can I ask for?
I was about to ask if ice heroes are good for meta, freeze mages are good for the meta, but I already know the answer.
They're really
not
good.
But we still don't know about the Lake, because we only saw 3 cards, maybe 4 cards of the Icelander deck. We still have many cards to go. We still don't know which tools the Draconic talent will get to actually, maybe some aura hate, not only the Affliction aura, but the regular aura as well. So we'll see. Lake is in general good against aggro decks. More powerful into ones than the others, but we don't have the way of determining that right now. I think we will have it maybe in it's 19th of May, so 2 weeks to the spoiler season, I think. So then we'll talk about the Lake.
Yeah, I think we'll do the special episode about the spoiler seasons and some cards for sure. But I want to make a step back and come back to the idea of unsolved meta that you mentioned before, that the presence of certain heroes and the Pro Tour showed us that there's still room for improvement, there's still room for new ideas to bring to the table. I was wondering, is it always a problem of the volume of the games? Because you mentioned before that, for example, when you were testing Dory versus Starvo, the first few games were in favor of Dory, because the Starvo was surprised with the game plan, or maybe with the Mattison wasn't for sure about the sideboard picks, but then really after a few games he adjusted and was able to take control. And I'm coming back here to the current situation with Starvo, because at the start of the previous ProQuests, we saw the huge domination of Starvo in the meta. There were tournaments, there were almost everyone in top 8 playing Starvo. And I was wondering if it is the change, the shift in the proportion of the Starvo's presence in the top 8s of the bigger tournaments. Is it because of the recent restrictions, the banning Awakening and Autumn Touch, or the impact, or is it because the players just figure out how to play against him, pick the correct decks that will counter him, and that's why the Starvo wasn't he was present at the tournament, but the results are way worse than they were before?
I think it's both in some way. We have to remember that actually Calling was won by Michael Hamilton without an awakening before the bans. So as much as that card is a great card, and it was great not only for the aggro decks but also for the mirror matches, I don't think this changed too much. Autumn's touches for sure. Starvos had to pick some other Earth cards. They had less defense in general in the deck. It wasn't a big difference, but it was something. But mainly, I think that people figured out Starvo at least a little bit. This was something that we discussed actually at the start of the ProQuest season, and everyone was panicking. The Starvo will win all the ProQuests in Poland, and no other hero will win anything. And this was something we talked about, that I think in like week 2, maybe week 3, we will start to see some less Starvos in the tops, that people will figure out the sideboard for that matchup. More people started to playing unmovables. Also, we in Prism we play 4 of them right now, and Starvo become less potent with that. It is still the greatest deck in the format right now, because even though it's really skillful and you have to know your game to play that well in the tournament, once every game you just win. You just draw 3 Crippling Crushes in a row with the fuse or Oaken Notes or anything, or a pummel with that, and that the game is just over. So with that variance, Starvo was the most dominant deck in the meta. But yeah, I think for sure people knew how to play against him. Tested not only in the ProQuest season, but in the whole time between ProQuest and ProTour, and with not that many changes in the ban and restriction announcement, I think they tested even more. And everyone was trying to figure out if the benchmark of the damage you need to kill Starvo is actually lower. Can you change some cards? Maybe take out one defensive actions, go a little bit more aggressive. So, yeah, I think both of these things mattered in the Pro Tour for sure.
To be fair, the restricted announcements made the deck even more consistent. If you're playing the casino variants, because 3 of the awakenings went out, so you had 3 more elemental cards. So that's a funny correlation, because it's like, I don't know, 2%, maybe not even, more chance of getting Starvo turn 1. But it's still a bigger variance. You have more breakers against Prism, so that matchup was better. Also, when the ProQuest season started, so everybody was playing Starvo, there weren't a lot of Prism decks around floating. And then the Prism deck emerged with with all the auras, with unmovables and stuff like that. So that kept Starvo in check for a while, and then Starvo also changed their game plan, because they brought in time skippers and more breakers, lead the charges. They played around double auras more, so like keeping blinks, playing flashes to clear out prismatic shields. So there's a lot of tag of war when it comes to solving the meta in the first during the first few big tournaments, right? So one player decides to play one card, and then 2 more players pick it up, and then 3 other players try to counter that, and that's how, at least in Poland, that's at least how it goes, because a lot of the players go around all of the ProQuests, or most of them, so you see familiar faces all around, and you basically know what they're playing. Since we were testing for the Pro Tour as well, we didn't keep any secrets between us. We ran in as Team Poland, so we just tested as Team Poland as well. We had like, I don't know, 5-6 cities, different cities from Poland, all coming together, testing, sharing thoughts, streaming matches, talking about stuff. So that was a fun experience as well. We didn't break the meta, but I think we tested as much as we could, and it showed, I think.
Yeah, speaking about familiar faces, there were 2 familiar faces in top 8s of Calling and the Pro Tour. I'm talking here about Maciej Janik, who was top 8 on the Pro Tour, and Mateusz Sas, who won Calling, both piloting Starvo, both from Team Poland, both players you were testing with. I was wondering how many Starvos were in Team Poland.
That's a good question.
Almost all of them.
Almost
I think
all.
we went with 15 players and 1 judge. And we had Chane, 2 prisms, and the rest were Starvos. I'm pretty sure about that.
Everyone. Oh,
yeah, that's true. Vosho was playing Lexi. Yeah,
Vosho was playing Lexi.
At least one decent one.
So everyone was playing the same list of Starvo, or were there any differences?
I don't think so.
Difference. Sorry. There was a difference in between a 9th breakground or a 9th evergreen. So they were basically non-existent. To be honest, it's basically preference. Maybe like 1-2 cards, blue cards exchanged.
Yeah, I think Duo played.
He played the tutor for Auras.
Tutor for Lake. What is it called? Imposing Visage. Yeah, Imposing Visage.
Yeah.
So he had that. I think that some players had 2 pommels and 1 sink, and the other ones had 2 sinks and 1 pommel. It was something like that. It was mostly just personal preferences at that point. There were a lot of discussions, some of them pretty heated and long ones, about what shield you want to use and in that matchup, or do you want 3 or 4 breakgrounds, or 16 or 17 ice cards, and so on and so on. So there were some differences, but it was like the same core.
So if there were so many Starvos, it was hard to test against the other heroes. Were you testing mostly mirrors?
Sure. I mean, we played Prism, so we were happy with playing against Starvos non-stop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but we tried to exchange heroes between each other to actually test other matchups and see them from the other side, from the pilot side as well. So I don't think that was a problem. And most players were testing in their own groups as well. So.
Yeah, some of the players were on Briar for a while as well.
Yeah.
Some of them were still on Chane for a while. But then they got drawn to the dark side and switched to Starvo.
One last time.
Yep.
So what was the overall score? We know that both Maciej and Mateusz was the highest. Anyone that almost missed top 8?
I think we had 8 people in the day 2.
I think 4 of them missed day 2 or 5, including Mattison, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah. The first one at the Pro Tour was Maciej in the top 8. Then it was Łukasz in top 16. I think he was actually 16th. Then Urlich at 30 something. Or 20, 29, something like that. Top 32, anyways. Then me in top 64. Then you. With Marek somewhere behind us,
and then Janek somewhere there as well. I think.
Yes, he missed the top 64 as well. Yeah. So basically we had like 8 or 9 people in the data, which was a great result actually.
So you overall showed that Poland is a strong country in terms of like plural Flesh and Blood players.
I hope so.
But I think it's also true for the European players, am I right? Like I know that from the it was the story was that the New Zealand players are the best in the world, and I was like really waiting for the Pro Tour to check check the reality, because it's the place where the all the continents come together to play Flesh and Blood. And from my understanding, the European shows the best side of the Flesh and Blood.
True. I mean, Europe won all of the events, right?
Yeah,
We had a European
three of
final
them.
in the Pro Tour. We had a European winner in the Blitz, in the Calling and in Battle Hardened. So that's great. I think the stigma with the New Zealand being having the best players is because it was said a long time ago, when they were the best players because they had the game for the longest time, and they had all of the tournaments, the big tournaments were there, right? So we as Europeans didn't have much opportunity to show ourselves and show that we also can play card games pretty well. And the Pro Tour verified it, right? We had the same exact time to practice as the New Zealand players and the US players, right? So basically, we showed that we can game.
Yeah, I think it was a long and pretty heated discussion in the internet for the longest times. There are some individuals running between groups and challenging people to play for money because they are supposedly that good, which I don't think is the case. I think that New Zealanders and Australians were the best players in the field, like maybe 2 years ago, when they actually had such knowledge about the game in comparison to us. It was pretty visible on the online tournaments, in the content creation, in the streams from their games. I remember watching the stream from the first Calling in Blitz when Ira came around, and being surprised with how well those decks are piloted and how little we know about the game. But it was 2 years ago. They had many tournaments. We could watch their streams. We didn't have many tournaments. They basically knew nothing about European players, besides the fact that we are supposedly bad at blocking and no one blocks in Europe and no one know how to play control game. Which was said about the US players as well for the longest times, and yeah, I think that ProTour verified that pretty hardly. I don't think that like right now the Europe is the best region and no one else can play the game. That's bullshit as well. I think that the best players won their tournaments. They happened to be from Europe, all three of them. I don't think that if we played 3 Pro Tours week by week, all of them would be won by Europe. I don't think that. I actually believe that there are many players, both in the US and New Zealand, that could easily won that tournament. Both from Arsenal Pass or the Team Dragon Shield or any of the players unassociated with any of those teams, like Michael Hamilton or Michael Karancha or Zach Bond or anyone. And the field was extremely strong. If you did well on Pro Tour, that's good for you. But if you didn't make the day 2, that doesn't mean you're a bad player. You still qualified for the tournament one way or another. You still had to come play very hard games, very tense matches all day long, and it still means something. So yes, I'm proud and I'm happy for the European players. I'm very happy that our teammate won the Calling, but I think that LILLE is open for the taking, and we'll see how that goes.
Exactly.
But did
to
you
emphasize
notice?
Go ahead.
Yeah, yes, can say.
To emphasize, we're not like saying the players from USA or New Zealand are bad per se. They're good players. It just happened that
they just didn't win that tournament. That's all.
Exactly.
I was really hoping for some for some, some trash talk or something like that. But you both are very diplomatic here.
Exactly.
So I'm
we're
gonna
nice
try
guys.
to ask. I'm gonna try to ask another way. Have you noticed any differences in a meta game, or maybe some play styles between the regions? Lemur mentioned about
New
difference
Zealanders
in blocking
block
stuff.
more. And that is actually true. I've played, I think it was like game 10 or 11 against player from New Zealand on Starvo. And he was genuinely surprised that I have defense reactions in my deck, that I'm blocking with my cards, that I'm blocking with equipment at the end of the game, and actually blocking on hits effects, not just blocking to be blocked. So yeah, I think they were actually believing that we are not blocking at all. And that's simply not true. We are just we like to play aggressively, and that is true, of course. But we block when we have to. So but when I was playing with Matt Rogers in the last turn, he was also pretty defensive. He had all the fuses he could get, but he still tried to block just a little bit and to not leak any damage if he could. So I think that was pretty visible difference in that.
I think I didn't see anything particular. One of the team players was just surprised that I played around Invert Existence, for example, or played around Soul Ripping or the Ursor token and stuff like that, which probably comes down to not exactly different play styles, but maybe different playtest groups, right? Because every player has their own play style. Some of them might be the same, sure, but everyone has a distinctive play style. For example, when Mattison plays Starvo, he plays it slightly different than everybody else, because he has more experience on Guardians, right? So he knows more about pitch stacking, he knows more about what to expect from his deck, which 3 blocks he has in deck and stuff like that. So I don't think it's a region difference per se, but more of a personal playstyle difference, which happens to overlap with players that are playing in the same play group, because they influence each other, right? So if one player plays this way and he wins, so naturally everyone starts trying to play like them as well, and that's why the quote unquote regional playstyles emerge from, I think so, at least.
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys that it's more centered around the playstyle of certain players. But I had a feeling, especially when I was like browsing the US Twitter, that there were some kind of how to say it. They were promoting Chane as the best as the best deck to play on Pro Tour, and I had a feeling that because I remember from your playtests that you said that Chane isn't any kind of threat for Prism and for the current meta, and you both didn't understand why. They are like convinced that the Chane is like the Prism is the worst choice to go for the Pro Tour, and Chane will dominate the whole tournament.
So I think there are three topics in that. First of all, we were wrong. As much as Prism can play into Chane, it doesn't mean that Prism has auto win against Chane, as we thought in the process of testing, which was like 2 weeks ago. So the conversation you're referring to actually happened, and since then we played more. We saw some play patterns, and we saw that you can actually play around the fatigue plan from Prism. But we still did not think that this is the other way around, where Chane is winning all games and Prism is basically bad deck for the Pro Tour. And this is actually a complicated issue, I think, because you're right that Twitter was buzzing about Chane being the best deck. and it's perfectly okay for me to make predictions, to try to explain your point of view in the social media. If you think that some deck is the best, you can say that. You can be wrong, you can be right. That doesn't matter at the end. But I don't think it's okay to use your position in the community to try to stack the meta at the tournament in your favor, which happened in my opinion, and I agree with Steelfur totally. Check out Steelfur on the YouTube. It's a great guy. Has a great content, and he released a video today talking a little bit about the lobbying of Chane before the Pro Tour, and some players trying to convince others that Chane is the actually the best choice and nothing else, and then showing up with Starvo at the tournament, which doesn't make any sense if you believe that the Chane is the best deck. And it's perfectly fine to change your mind, to change your deck at the last minute. That's fine. But if you are a content creator, there is some kind of social contract, I believe. It's the same with banks. If you're going to the bank, you are actually assuming that they will not try to rob you. We all know they will, but they are supposed to advise you in the financial matters. And I personally feel the same way about content creators. It's okay to be wrong. Many content creators make predictions, tier lists, hot takes, take your pick. And they are wrong many times, maybe even more than they're right. But I don't think it's okay to try to convince everyone that this is the deck to beat. All of us should take that deck. It's the clear best choice. And then show up with the other deck, which is actually more favorable in the situation, assuming that everyone listened to the advice. So it's a hard thing. I know that Twitter is bullshit sometimes, and you should not listen to any things in social media. But I still I agree with Steelfur on that matter. It was not okay, and there was a line that was crossed, in my opinion. So, and Chane won the Pro Tour. That's true, and he didn't use any crazy tags from Twitter, any weird cards. He just played the best. So.
I mean, it's one thing being a content creator and just expressing your opinion, right? But it's a whole other thing. Especially if you're in a test group that is really competitive, right? And you know what you're playing, you know your conclusions. For sure, you don't want to share all of them, right? But you're releasing a, I don't know, video, article, tweet longer, whatever you're doing with your content. It's good to be fair, right? Not to push any false conclusions onto people. Just don't make conclusions if you don't want to like reveal your text or something like that. Just leave the description open. Don't draw any conclusions because most of the players that were trying to take the Pro Tour seriously were testing their own groups, so like they didn't go for the bait. They just were slightly confused and stuff like that. But there were people that just came to the Pro Tour to, I don't know, to have fun or to just do as best as they could. And from the amount of pressure that was exerted from Twitter, some of them probably submitted to that, right? And switched to Chane, switched to the secret tags or something like that, and it didn't work out for them. So it really, it's a weird thing to be in, because on one side, you know, like you're not obligated to follow content creators and to trust every word that they say, But to some extent, like as you mentioned, if we were to assume everyone is lying, like what would be with the lies, right? You usually assume someone is trying to help you if they're putting out a tweet or a video or something like that, and not to gain some advantage through that. But maybe it wasn't malicious. Maybe it was. We will never know. It happened. Sure, nothing we can do about that. But yeah, I think it was not nice. But it's, if someone was taking the proto seriously, they double check the information, right? So to that extent, I think it's slightly okay. I wouldn't do that myself. As Silver said, he just didn't release any Pro Tour testing experience. Didn't write anything after testing. Just did everything prior to that.
Yeah, because he released the tier video at the start of the process, and then did not release any thoughts from the group, which makes perfect sense. Like
exactly.
They were testing for the Pro Tour.
Yeah,
it was their information that they wanted to keep it to themselves. That makes sense. After all, it's a big tournament for a lot of money. All of us wanted to win, so it's a fair game to be as competitive as you can. But I think there are some boundaries that should not be crossed. And yeah, we'll see if that happens again. Hopefully not.
Yep. But speaking about promoting the heroes, I think there's one hero that should be promoted. I'm talking here about Yorick.
Yes.
Yorick, our prize for a giveaway.
Yeah, I actually have him somewhere in here. So you guys can talk about the giveaway and I will find him. Just give me a second.
Right, so Tinyguy, what should we do for this giveaway? What should be the
incentive?
The quest.
The quest. That's a good question. I think we told our stories from the Pro Tour. So we'd like to hear your stories, right? So if you could comment the being on theme. If you could comment your worst mistrigger from the Pro Tour, or from your recent games, right? If you weren't on the Pro Tour, from your recent games, what was the worst mistrigger that you committed?
There is Yorick.
Yeah, there we go.
I know you cannot see anything in my camera, but you have to believe me. That is a
this is the original card. Yes.
Yeah, this is a factory sealed Yorick from ProTour New Jersey. We got one extra from our side events, and we decided to give it back to the community in our giveaway. So whatever this guy told you to do that, and you will be able to maybe win.
That's right.
That's beautiful card.
So rules are simple. Leave the comment under this video. Tell the story of your worst missed trigger from Pro Tour or for a recent tournament, or from your life. Maybe you missed a trigger somewhere.
There are some triggers to be missed. That's for sure.
That's right.
Didn't turn off the omen or something like that, right?
That's a
right. Trigger.
And the comment with the most likes will win.
Yeah.
Like, simple.
Yeah.
All right. So to wrap it up, you both you both enjoyed Pro Tour. I remember, Lemur, you told me that I must buy tickets for France Pro Tour, even if I will not qualify.
Absolutely, everyone should do that. If you are listening to this podcast, you don't have a ticket to LILLE yet, go pause the video, go online, book your flight tickets, book your hotel. We still cannot buy the tickets for the tournament itself. That's not a problem. Just book everything else and plan with your wife or family or anyone that you can actually go. This is an amazing experience, and if you love Flesh and Blood as we do, you should really have that experience in your life. So
And
make
you don't
that
need
happen.
to play in the Pro Tour, right? You have
Yeah.
calling, you have side events, you have the Battle Harden probably as well on Sunday.
Yeah, we had
So
actually
there's
two
still a lot
players
to do.
in Team Poland who traveled with us to play calling and side events, and they had a great fun. So
Yep.
Okay. There's also one more good experience to do. It's to subscribe and to like this video. To subscribe to our channel
that was
and
terrible.
like the video.
Hit the bell. Hit the bell.
Yeah,
Hit the
Right.
bell. Yeah, but I know that every content creator say it at the end of the videos or even at the start of the videos. But to be honest, I always feel excited when I see the numbers goes up with the subscribers. Like
Sure.
when we reach the 100 subscribers, we were like screenshotting the amount of
That's true.
subscribers on our Discord channel, and when we reached 200, it was also like this screenshot fiesta. And I think that this is some kind of a nice thank you for content creators, and it's always a pleasure for us to see that you like our content, that you like what we do, and that you basically motivate us to work more, to work harder on the content, to deliver better quality and to improve. So if you see any room for improvement, just also leave a
let us
comment
know.
below and let us know.
True.
Right. Okay. Thank you. This was the first episode of our podcast.
Hopefully not the last.
Hope-
We'll see about that.
That's right.
Definitely not the
That's
last.
Okay. See ya.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.